All right, good morning, Oakwood students. Hope you all are doing well back at home or wherever you find yourselves this morning. We continue to pray for you as we work through this transition. We're honored to have this morning Dr. Mark Weeter, the provost of Oklahoma Wesleyan. And Dr. Weeter, I just want to start by saying thank you to you for your leadership, you, Dr. Fisher, all the faculty. I know this has been a tremendous challenge for you all, so thank you for that. Our time this morning is basically spent working through several questions that we've received from you students about academics, about registration for the fall. And so Dr. Weeter is going to lend his expertise to help us answer those questions this morning. So
it might not take very long if it's based on my expertise.
Dr. Weeter, let's start with this. What about fall registration? So if I'm a student, how do I go about registering for fall classes?
Well, registering is not really any different than really any other semester because it's still done online. This week, seniors, people who will be returning seniors can start registering. Obviously, you need to be in contact with your advisor. I know one of the questions had to deal with advisors. How do I get a hold of my advisor? Well, your advisor is supposed to be getting a hold of you, and I am challenging them, and the deans are too, to contact you either by email or by Zoom or whatever the case may be. To go over your 8-semester plan, make sure you're in the right classes. However, it still falls back on the student, like it always does, to go in on web access, build your fall semester, put them in your cart, and your advisor approves it. So the only thing that's a little bit different is the timetable, since our calendar got all confused and we're not here on campus to do it. But you, this week as a senior, can go in and load your cart. And then next week, all freshmen, sophomore, and juniors can also then go in and build their schedule. So really, if you build a schedule for this spring, it's the same process because it's still done online through web access.
Great. And even though campus was not classes online, faculty are still working, right? Still checking email, so they should stay on top of
all
these
the
things.
Faculty are still, we had a faculty meeting yesterday, and all our faculty did a Zoom meeting, and we are not on extended vacation. We are working. Probably some of us are working harder because we have so many balls up in the air to keep up with, but faculty are required still to keep office hours, even though it's on their computer. They're required to have hours, so they'll be watching, they'll be listening. The same way with ACE. ACE is still working right now and doing tutorials and everything that we can do virtually we're doing. But faculty should be responding. If they are not responding, you can contact their dean, but we will be talking to them and motivating them. I'm sure that they will, but if for some reason you're just having a hard time making connection or something like that, you can also email the dean and say, I've not heard from my advisor. But I will be sending another email out today just to remind faculty. We spoke about it yesterday in the Zoom meeting to make sure that we have as much community, as much contact as possible, and they want to help you work through your schedule and get it set up for fall.
Great. If I'm a student and I try to register on web access and notice that I have a stop on my account, what can I do about that?
We've really taken most of the stops away. Now, there's one stop. Again, if you're a returning student, all of you, even freshmen, should realize this now. There is one stop that's called a regular student account stop that every student has to go in and take care of, and that's the one. There's a link which will be posted up on the hub, and all it is you have to go in and answer a couple of questions. And you had to do it last fall. We have to do it every semester. This is a federal government guideline. It's really, really important because it has to do with financial aid and so on and so forth, but it takes you less than 5 minutes to do it. And there will be a link put out for you to go ahead and do that. Now, that one we cannot remove because it's really, really important. If you have a question, you can still call or you can email Mandy Hill, who's works in the registrar's office and financial aid office, business office, to take care of that. That one everybody has to do, but again, that just takes a couple of minutes. Now, normally, if you have a stop based upon your account, based on how much money you owe, that could stop you from registering. But this year, because of the extraordinary circumstances, that stop has been removed. So now you're still going to have to deal with your bill before you come back to school like any regular semester, but that will not stop you. All those kind of stops have been removed. I talked to Andrea Peta, our CFO, yesterday, and she said that has been taken down. And they'll continue to deal with the students and help the students deal with their finances, but that will not stop you from registering.
Great. And students, just for clarification, if you need to get a hold of Mandy Hill, excuse me, her email address is Hill, Hill at okwu.edu. And again, she's working too, so don't hesitate to reach out. And I think that's one of the things you've been talking about, Dr. Weeter, is really during this time, communication is a two-way street that we'll do our best to communicate, but we would encourage students, whether it's faculty, whether it's staff, to be proactive, to communicate as well, so we can make sure we answer any questions.
That link I mentioned to you that all students have to do, that was sent out last Friday. So all the students, if you check your email, remember the email, even though I know that's not the social way to do it nowadays, as far as our contacting you, it's still through your OKWU email. And so that link was sent to you last Friday from the Student Accounts Office. And so you should already have it. But like I said, it will, I'm sure will be posted on the hub, and or also Mandy can help you. Something else I think was sent out, but is very, very important because of the coronavirus and because our calendars have been completely whacked out. The day to withdraw from classes has been changed. That day normally would have been passed already. In other words, there's a date in the calendar, the academic calendar, where you can withdraw with any class with just a W. It doesn't affect your GPA. It just shows that you were in a class and withdrew. Normally that would have been passed already, but we changed the dates. I'm looking over here on my other screen to make sure I don't mess it up. But now the last day to withdraw from class with a withdrawal passing or withdrawal failing has been changed to April 17th. And that is different than it was before. You have to April 9 to just get a W. In other words, it doesn't say anything about whether you were passing or failing. You have April 9 to drop a class if you feel like, I'm just not going to be able to make this. I did that one time when I was in college many, many years ago. I was in calculus and this was not going well. So don't feel bad if you feel you might have to drop a class. And that would just give you a W. After that, your professors are going to have to go in and put a WP or WF, and that can reflect on your grade point average. Also, very, very important to understand, now if you withdraw from a class, even if it drops you below the 12 hours, we always keep harping on making sure you're a full-time student because you're financial aid. I talked to Candy Mulder, our director, yesterday. She said, at this point, if you have to drop a class and if it drops you below your 12 hours, it will not affect your financial aid. So that's really important. Now, if you're an athlete, the 24-hour rule, because I don't know what they're all going to do with all the changes and eligibilities and stuff like that. I noticed the NCAA just gave the spring semester athletes another year of eligibility. Probably NAI might do the same thing. But as far as getting your 24 hours in, if you drop your hours and you don't have 24 hours, that could be an impact. But it will not affect your financial aid if you feel necessary to drop a class. And I think that's important. Or if you want to add one back in, get with your advisor. If you had decided to drop, now you want to add back in, get with your advisor as well.
Okay. Just a couple more questions here, Dr. Weeter. We've heard from some students that their internet can be spotty, or maybe they don't have access like they'd like to. So if that happens and they miss a deadline on Brightspace, what should they do about it?
I, again, spoke to all the faculty yesterday and have multiple times. What I've said to them basically is this. Here's our way we're supposed to operate this semester. Grace, grace, grace. We understand this is a global pandemic. This is something nobody anticipated. We're all doing this on the fly. You have a number of old dinosaurs like me who are teaching a class now virtually that have never done this before and only used Brightspace as a minimum, and my learning curve was straight up. And what I've tried to express to my faculty, we had a big training session last Monday and Tuesday for all the faculty that wanted training on Brightspace. And what I've tried to express to them, and they know this better than I probably, is you can't recreate your on-ground class online. We have to make modifications. We have to have accommodations. We can't try to get all the same material in maybe that we would have gotten on the on-ground class. On top of that, as you said, people have trouble getting access to the internet. Their Wi-Fi might be spotty. I found that with one of my students yesterday in virtual class. We have students that are international back home in Spain or Italy, which is really stricken terribly with the pandemic. And you have 6 or 8 time zone differences. And so I've told the faculty, if you're going to use virtual classrooms like I am, you're going to have to record the lectures, you're going to have to post the lectures, you're going to have to give the students time to watch the lectures. And I told them, please take into account deadlines, show grace. We're not going to throw academic rigor out the window. We're not just going to give everybody grades. We can't do that. We're not allowed to do that. But I've asked them to have grace. I don't want to come down to the end of the semester and have a multitude of appeals from students who feel like, I was not treated fairly because I couldn't get my paper in or something like that. And I don't think that's going to happen. Our faculty are just not that way. But again, it is a learning curve for all of us. This is really the first full week of classes. I know some classes like nursing and some business classes have been doing a lot of work on Brightspace started last week. But for the rest of us, this is the first full week of classes, and some of us are just kind of feeling our way. But you always have access to go to your professor if you feel like you're not being treated fairly. And then there's also a process of you appealing to the dean of that department of that class if you feel you're not being treated fairly. And hopefully that won't happen, but if that's the case, we've always had that process in place for academic appeals, and we are going to try to be cognizant of all this change. It's moving so fast, everything's kind of on the fly, and we're trying to deal. For example, those of you might be saying, well, I came in on probation, and now I don't know what's going to happen about my grades and stuff. Well, we're having meetings about all of these things, trying to understand, how can we reflect the challenges going on. Now, the one stop that might keep you from registering, and I guess I should mention this, if you came back to OWU on an appeal, if you were suspended and came back on an appeal, then you might not be automatically allowed to register, because really your ability to come back is based upon how you finish out the semester. And so that's probably the only one that will really be affected by the stops.
Okay. What about, we've heard from some students, like our class is going to be graded on a pass-fail scale. Can you speak to that for a minute?
We're talking about that in academic affairs today, but I don't think that's the case. And here's the reason why. Now, that discussion did come up last week, and we had this discussion, but I just received a report from the State of Oklahoma Board of Regents yesterday about the COVID-19 virus. And in that report, it mentioned that they wanted, because of all the varying difficulties of scholarships, graduate schools, all the things that are reflected in grades, that they want all the professors to give grades. And actually, I haven't even reported that to my deans yet. It also said in there, the way the policy is set up in the State of Oklahoma Board of Regents is the only way you can give pass fails in a class, unless they came back and gave us permission. This is in the letter I received yesterday. It said that unless the student entered the class and they knew at the beginning of the class it was a pass fail, that's the only way you can call a graded class a pass fail. Now, it's possible things could change the next 2 days, things are moving so rapidly, but I just received that letter from the State of Oklahoma yesterday, Board of Regents, as advising colleges how they're supposed to act. So at this time, there's no plan to change just to a straight pass fail.
Okay, great. Last question is simply one on communication. If a student hasn't heard from their professor or faculty member, what should they do moving forward?
Well, if they haven't contacted you, you try to contact them. Email them. Actually, we've given them permission actually to use, their cell phone so they can text if that's easier to get through than email. We normally don't do that. We'd like you to go through the email process, but we've given permission for that. And again, then if for some reason you say, I just tried to get a hold of Dr. Weeter and he just will not answer, well, and you're taking a Bible class like with me, well, then contact Dr. Van Kyken, contact the dean of that class or the dean of your major and say, I've just not heard from my professor. I hope that will not be the case. Again, we're stressing communicate more than we ever have, but it could be, again, a technical problem or whatever the case may be. So if your advisor hasn't contacted you, you go ahead and contact them. If they still do not respond, contact their dean, and I'm sure the dean will respond.
Great, thank you. Students, again, staying with us, we'll communicate with you. This is a process of transition for all of us. We know we'll end at some point, so we're doing our best to resource you and connect you. Dr. Weeter, thanks for your time this morning, and students will be in touch. Thank you.
God bless you guys.